All right, guys, welcome back. This time we're going to be covering the Saints at Texans. Saints were beat by 7, 13-20. The over-under in this game was 42, did not come close, and the Saints were 1.5 favorites, which obviously they didn't cover. Starting off with the Saints, Derek Carr actually didn't have too bad of a day, even as far as fantasy quarterbacks go. I mean, he was 32 for 50,
Sheesh.
353 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. So he rushed the ball one time for 2 yards as well.
Mm-hmm.
So he finished with 17.3 points. We haven't seen teams pass like this on the Texans. It's generally kind of a run funnel defense. So, I mean, I guess for the pass catchers in New Orleans, you would expect this to be a pretty good day. And it wasn't bad. It really wasn't. Chris Olave finished 7 of 10 for 96 yards. He played 88% of the snaps, which obviously you're going to expect him to be on the field. He played 72 snaps in this game. 16.6 PPR points for Chris Olave. You like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not too crazy, but obviously you're getting over 10 points. You're getting over 15 points. You're very happy. Michael Thomas, what do we tell you? He did Michael Thomas things. 5 for 8, 45 yards, 9.5 PPR points. It's Michael Thomas. It's what you're going to get every week between like 9, 11 points. He is the floor play. That's pretty simple.
Yeah.
I do like playing Michael Thomas. Not necessarily every week. Like I said, since he's a floor play, you're not going to get much higher of a ceiling than like 11, 12 points unless he were to score a touchdown that week, but he hasn't scored one so far this year, not really counting on that. The guy who had the biggest day in that wide receiver room was Rashid Shaheed. And we've seen that. We know Derek Carr likes to throw the deep ball to him. In fact, he finished with 2 catches on 6 targets for 85 yards and a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Also had 2 rushes for 18 yards. I mean, Rashid Shaheed is not a guy that every week I can trust to throw into my lineup.
Mm-hmm.
But if you need a spark or something, you're down a lot of whatever the case may be, you need a ceiling play and you got to make a pivot at wide receiver. I do like Rashid Shaheed just for the fact that he's a deep threat. Derek Carr throws it to him. He's on the field 76% of the time. Played 62 snaps in this game. I think it's pretty obvious at this point that the 3 wide receivers are Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, Rashid Shaheed.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing about this game was the Taysom Hill usage.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill got 8 targets, caught 7 of them for 49 yards, had 1 rushing attempt for 2 yards, had 1 completion for 4 yards. This game was the full Taysom Hill experience. He gave you 10.3 or 12.3 PPR points. I don't know that I'm really too excited about that or willing to jump out and use him.
No.
And I mean, if you got him in a best ball or something, good. Maybe he'll get it. He's going to be out there because they paid him a lot of money and they like him as their little gadget guy. But is he going to get 8 targets every week? No. So but my Alvin Kamara, man, he's just been the 3 weeks that he has been back from the suspension. This guy's been great. The first week, 21.4, then 18.7, this week, 17.4. 19 attempts, 68 yards, caught 7 of 8 passes for 36. I mean, this is the Alvin Kamara experience. We know Derek Carr loves to check the ball down to his running backs.
Mm-hmm.
And, he happens to have one of the best pass-catching running backs that exists. So I think Alvin is a week in, week out, if not RB1, high-end RB2.
Yeah.
And I think this is what we're going to be able to expect out of Alvin Kamara as long as he stays healthy. Even when Jamal Williams comes back, he'll probably work in a little bit. But, in this game, we didn't see Kendre Miller do too much. He had a couple rushes for like -4 yards, had like a catch for like 12 or something. It's Alvin Kamara's backfield. Jamal will maybe come back and spell him a little bit, but no more than I think they have Tony. Tony Jones went somewhere else.
Yeah.
No more than they have Kendre Miller and the rest of that squad spelling him right now. So I think Alvin Kamara is super safe, super reliable. And yeah, as far as the Saints side of the ball, that's really all. I mean, their tight end, what's
Juwan
the other
Johnson
guy?
missed again.
Juwan Johnson missed, but the guy that came from the Raiders, it's slipping my mind right now.
I'll let you struggle for a couple more seconds.
No, just say it.
Foster Moreau.
Thank you. Foster Moreau. I don't even know why I struggled so much to bring the name up, because all I was going to tell you was he's not someone that I would ever consider rostering.
Disrespectful.
Just the way that they use Taysom, the way they use Taysom Hill, and they still have another tight end who's out right now. It's none of the tight ends in New Orleans are really worth rostering, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If you have anything else to add to the Saints offense,
Just
I think
that
it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, if you were a Saints fan, you're disappointed because you lost the game. But if you're not and you're just a Saints player fantasy owner, I mean, 353 yards and you put up below 20 points is kind of crazy. Especially Alvin Kamara had a solid day on the ground too. I mean, Kamara's a must start. Olave, we're seeing him come back to life. Michael Thomas.
And
Rashid Shaheed, yeah, like Schiff said, I don't like him every week, but he is one of those guys. He's like an upgraded, what we saw Marvin Mims at the beginning of the season. If Rashid Shaheed catches a deep ball, he can give you 15 to 20. But
yeah,
you are rolling the dice.
Like, compared to guys like Marvin Mims, some of these, even I'd say like Rashee Rice, guys who aren't even on the field 50% of the time, running a lot of routes. Rashid Shaheed's out there.
Yeah.
While he might give you, he might burn you, he also has a lot more of a chance to give you that boom week just because he's out there.
Yeah, and Derek Carr can throw the deep ball.
Oh, yeah. The touchdown pass they connected on was beautiful. It was right over the middle, beautiful route by Rashid Shaheed. It was perfect. And honestly, I'm at the point where Derek Carr is not someone that I'm necessarily shying away from if I need a quarterback to start. He looks, if not 100%, a lot healthier than he did. He's not just limited to throwing the checkdowns. Obviously, he threw the ball 50 times for 353 yards.
Yeah.
And I think more touchdowns will come. I mean, this one, he only threw one touchdown, still finished with 17.3 points. And this week, that was not that bad.
No.
Truly. It was more than CJ Stroud. He finished more points than Trevor Lawrence. You could go down the list, and you're going to find a lot of people that Derek Carr finished above that you were not expecting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm like, because the Texans haven't been, when Lamar Jackson played the Texans week 1, 7.56 points. It's been tough sledding against that Texans defense for quarterbacks and wide receivers, not just this year, but last year too. It was the same way. And seeing Derek Carr come out and the Saints offense being able to perform in the air, it was nice. And I really like it moving forward, all these fantasy options.
Yeah.
Going on to the Texans side of the ball, they were able to win the game, but it was a very interesting football game because the Saints had a whole lot of blown chances, and CJ Stroud throws his first pick of his career, and immediately the linebacker fumbles, and the Texans get the ball back. It felt like the whole game. I mean, the Saints go down, miss their first field goal. It just felt like everything that could go wrong for the Saints in this game was absolutely finding a way to go wrong.
Yeah.
So CJ only 13 for 27, 199 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick, 3 attempts for 2 yards. One thing we know about CJ Stroud at this point, he's not going to be one who runs the ball too often. It's and 15.2 points. It's not the best week, but we have noted the Saints do have a very good defense. They've been very stout, haven't been giving up too much. They are, in fact, only giving up 16 points per game, 96.3 yards on the ground, and 182 through the air. So this wasn't super far outside of my expectations. I wasn't expecting this to really be a blow-up week for the Texans offense. And with that, kind of the running back production was bleak.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that kind of concerned me on this one, we were seeing Dameon Pierce kind of start to solidify himself as the surefire RB1. And while he did look very good, he only played 33% of the snaps. He only played 21 snaps in this game. Devin Singletary played 34. And I was going back and watching this game, and I saw they were kind of it wasn't, one of them spelling the other. It was kind of an alternating drive type thing. So that, as if you potentially have Dameon Pierce, or that does really worry me, because while he does look good, this offensive line is still kind of a pieced together, being held by, a string type of thing that they have going on. So the running production hasn't been too great so far anyways. The efficiency has been way down, and neither of these guys have been able to really do much without a touchdown. Pierce, 13 attempts, 34 yards. That's it. So 3.4 points.
Yeah.
Devin Singletary, 12 attempts, 58. Caught a pass for 4 yards, gave you 7.2. I mean, I guess if you want to roster Devin Singletary just due to the fact that he's getting volume, and maybe when that offensive line gets better, it's kind of obvious to me at this point that they didn't just sign Devin Singletary for no reason. He's not Rex Burkhead. We saw him have a lot of success in Buffalo. He's a good running back.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't hate rostering Dameon Pierce, like I said, especially if they get that offensive line back together, they get things going a little bit. But I'm just not too excited about either one. I'm very concerned about Dameon Pierce.
Yeah.
The wide receivers, we saw Tank Dell out of this game with a concussion, so that meant obviously the other guys were going to have to step up. Unfortunately, Nico Collins didn't have the absolute blow-up day I would have been hoping for with Tank missing. But like we said, it's against a solid Saints defense, so I wasn't disappointed with what he gave me. And that was 4 catches on 6 targets for 80 yards. I mean, and if you watch Nico Collins play football, the dude is good as hell. I mean, there's a route he toasted Marshawn Lattimore on, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. Caught a beautiful, he's laying out, catching passes from CJ Stroud. It's great. The connection there is great. I like starting Nico Collins almost every week outside of next week, which will be their bye.
Mm-hmm.
Which being their bye, obviously, I think Tank Dell is going to come back in week 8 healthy, ready to go. But the other guy, I mean, we didn't really see anyone else step up too much. Robert Woods had 3 targets, caught one of them for the 6-yard touchdown, which
saved his
I guess
day.
you could say saved his day with 7.6 points in a PPR setting. He played 62% of the snaps. Dalton Schultz was the big winner for the Texans. He caught 4 of 7 passes for 61 and a touchdown. And we've talked about how we like Dalton Schultz after, his performance last week. And as he's starting to become more of a, passing threat in that offense. And this was against a good Saints defense. So I'm really liking Dalton Schultz at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You go out and get 16.1 PPR points against a team who has been, doing a pretty damn good job of shutting down tight ends. Hunter Henry didn't have a single catch last week. I like what I'm seeing out of Dalton Schultz. But as far as everyone else, it's Nico Collins. And I think CJ Stroud is going to have a lot better time. We could say it again how good the Saints defense is, but I do think CJ Stroud has a lot better weeks coming. But the Dameon Pierce, Devin Singletary thing is something that I'm going to continue monitoring. Obviously, next week is their bye, but throughout the rest because it's just kind of one thing I think if on this bye week for them, if in week 8 you're going to need a running back, I think you should be able to go out and pick up Devin Singletary for absolutely nothing because nobody's going to want to roster a running back on bye. So, but aside from that, I mean, it was a slugfest. 33 points scored total. It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to comment. I like Nico Collins, like you mentioned. Starting to like Dalton Schultz a lot more. He had a very slow start, but the past 3 weeks he's been very solid. And we know he can play. So I do like Dalton Schultz. Dameon Pierce was starting to get ramped up, but his production has not been very good. His yards per carry have not been very good. If he wasn't stumbling in the end zone, he's having rough weeks.
Yeah, man. It's like Rashad White without the volume.
Yeah.
And I just can't get behind that.
No. And then just the last thing to touch on, CJ Stroud, didn't have the greatest fantasy week, but it wasn't the greatest fantasy week for any quarterback. As of now, obviously not including the Chargers or the Cowboys. Jalen Hurts is the #1 fantasy quarterback for the week with 22.9. So it just for quarterbacks. Yeah. So for quarterbacks, it just wasn't.
7 with 18.
Yeah, and that just shows, it was just a rough week overall. So, I mean, if you did start Stroud, I mean, even if you played the #1 fantasy quarterback, you got outscored by like 7.5, 8 points. It's not, the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, in a week where Justin Fields gets 5 points, it's pretty indicative.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, that'll be all for this one. Like we say every time, we love you guys for the support and continue to do that. And we will continue putting out these episodes for you. Whatever you need, if you need help on fantasy, any questions, whatever you may have, comment down below, let us know. And we'll be back next time.
Yes, sir.